It's 1 year today until the UK leaves the EU. So we have invited people from other EU countries living in North Yorkshire to share their thoughts and their stories with us this morning for a Brexit special. The countries represented include the Czech Republic, Denmark, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Lithuania, Malta and the Netherlands. It's actually getting more like the Eurovision Song Contest, isn't it? Let us meet our first mini group from the EU countries who live in North Yorkshire these days. Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning.
Whereabouts are you from originally?
I'm from Czech Republic, from South Bohemia.
Okay, and Charlotte?
Yes, I'm from Denmark. I'm from a place near Copenhagen.
And finally, Marie. I'm going to say Marie like that, and then people have no doubt that you are...
French, and I'm from Paris.
I'm from the wonderful city of light. Well, thank you ever so much indeed for coming to join us this morning. Let's just find out what your stories are about why you're actually here. Lucy, let's just find out what your stories are about why you're actually here. Lucy, how come a woman from the Czech Republic lives in North Yorkshire?
Well, it's a long story. I came here originally as an au pair in 2004, and I met my former husband now then, and I went back to Czech, finished my studies at university, and then moved over here and start working. And I think it's because of the relationship, really, nothing else.
Right. And what's your life been like in North Yorkshire? What is your life like in North Yorkshire? You're one of the smiliest people I've ever met, so you're obviously a very happy person.
Well, I'm trying to be, yeah. I think it's brilliant. I love York, and I love Yorkshire because it's very much like the part of Europe I am from, and I love the nature around, and I like my work.
So you were originally brought here by work, by being an au pair?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What was that work like? Because you hear all sorts of stories that being an au pair can either be delightful or very tough, depending on what the family's like and whether you've got great kids to look after.
Well, I was very lucky because my family was really lovely. I was looking after two little children, William and Helena, and Mum, she was an opera singer, so she was brilliant. And it was nice to listen to her singing, and I really liked working for her because she was
opera around the house. Let's turn to Charlotte, who's originally from Denmark. Good morning.
Good morning.
How come a Danish person lives in York or North Yorkshire?
Well, this is obviously original sort of Viking country, but that's not really why I came to London as a student in '95. So I've been here, sort of met my former husband and stayed around.
And what do you do?
I work. I've got two part-time jobs at the moment, but I've obviously been a stay-at-home mum as well. So.
And you obviously like it here because you're still here. 23, is my maths right? 23 years on.
Yeah, I've been back in Denmark 2.5 years, but I'm sort of back here again. I've been here sort of 8 years now, and yeah, I really like it. I really like York, and I like Yorkshire. It's beautiful. But obviously now with Brexit, I'm not sure if I'm staying or not.
We shall come on to that in a moment or two's time. And let's greet Marie Sabatier. Marie Sabatier. The only thing I know about Sabatier is they make great knives. You're not part of the knife-making family.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I arrived here in September to do to study here, and I'm on my final year of international business.
So you only came here last September?
Yes.
So you're studying here,
Yes.
enjoying it?
Oh, I study at York St. John, and I really enjoy York so far. It's such a wonderful town, and I love the spirit of this town.
But you come from Paris. You come from one of the most beautiful cities on the entire face of the planet.
Yes, but I think it's nice because I want to improve my English, and I think it's really nice to be in a smaller town because you really discover the culture, because London is very similar to Paris. So I really wanted to get a deep insight of the life of Britain.
Well, your English is certainly superb, better than my French. Well, let's come on to what your feelings are about the fact that the country that you're living in now, 1 year from today, come 11 o'clock at night, Big Ben, they're going to get it to ring out to mark the fact that the UK is leaving the EU, that Brexit will take place. Lucy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not really too worried about it because, listening to the talks and what the politicians are saying, it seems to be that they will be trying to sort out the situation, and it's probably too early to be making any, comments about it because we will see what will happen in years' time, but I'm not too worried, really.
What's the feeling you get from the Czech Republic, from your homeland, about Britain's decision to do this? Because, some people have labelled us unfriendly, and that, we've always been an awkward member of the EU. We've never been easy to get on with. Some people are glad to see the back of us, and other people thinking, good heavens, what have you done? Have you made the right decision?
Well, I think Czech Republic you in any bad way, because we are struggling at the moment with our own, votes and our new president, or it's not a new president, but we have troubles there with the prime minister and everything. So I think Brexit, it's totally, on outskirts of our thought. But because the Britain has been always sort of friend for us since Second World War, so we just take it as it goes. And just we just wait, what he will come with, what conclusion will be from there.
And what about you? What about Lucy's life in 12 months' time? Have you got any plans to flee Great Britain, to leave the UK when Brexit takes place? Because we're hearing about people saying, I don't want to stay here. I don't feel welcome anymore.
Well, I think, even if you will leave the European Union, I will just stay if I will want to stay here, because it wouldn't change a thing for me. If I will need a visa, I will just apply for it and I will see what will happen. But I think it doesn't make to
go home back to the Czech Republic.
Well, I travel quite a lot because I'm just finishing my studies over in Czech. But it will just make it more difficult if I will have to explain why I'm traveling, to England and why I'm traveling back to European Union, which will be a little bit annoying, but otherwise I hope it will stay the same.
Well, I hope you still feel the same atmosphere of friendliness. So what about the Danish perspective on all of this? Charlotte, how do you feel about the UK's decision and what it might mean for you?
I feel very upset, to be honest, and quite sad that this is what it's come to, because it never crossed my mind that I might have to sort of think, am I welcome here? Can I stay here if I wanted to, or sort of will I be second grade citizen?
Do you feel you have the answers to those questions yet? 1 year to go, the clock is ticking, and it's quite fundamental to your life. Will you be welcome here? Will you be a second class citizen? Will you still hang on to rights?
No, I think they have going to be, or how it will really affect us. Maybe they don't really quite know, to be honest, at the moment. But I've sort of thought, what about? Obviously, I will stay because my children are here for now, and I'll stay till they move away from home or whatever. But then it's still, obviously, I'm also going through a divorce, so that also puts it sort of on the, will I stay? Will I go back to Denmark? I don't know, to be honest.
It would be such a shame if nice people felt they had to leave York and North Yorkshire as a result of this. I mean, do you actually think it might come to that?
I don't know. I have never sort of come across any sort of unfriendliness or people saying, why are you still here? I know other people have, but I've not experienced it. So I still feel sort of welcome. But the whole atmosphere, I think, has just been a bit of, EU, we don't need you. We don't need the rest of the EU. That's sort of how it's very negative.
But do you understand why so many British people feel like, the vote was 52% of people said. Understand why so many British people feel like, the vote was 52% of people said we should leave. Do you understand why people felt that way? And judging by the reaction to the phone in this morning, so many people say, I voted leave then and I'd vote leave today. I think we're doing the right thing.
I think, unfortunately, that perhaps they were misinformed or not. But I do understand why they have that feeling, and they sort of feel perhaps left out of, politics. We're very much focused on London or the south of England and not really sort of the north, perhaps. But it still is very sad, I think, and also focus very much on the negative things that the EU gives, not the positive things, not what we have. So we've strung it together and those things.
What do you think the Danish perspective on this is? If we were to go back to Denmark today and ask people in the streets, what do you think of this decision? Would they think we were crazy, or do you think there's an interest in Denmark, for example, in leaving? Think we were crazy, or do you think there's an interest in Denmark, for example, in leaving the EU?
I think some people would also sort of focus on the negative things, but I think most people feel like we need the EU, and Denmark is a small country and they benefit from being part of the EU, and with sort of just travelling freely and to be able to move over here to work, to study, and very easily. I think they benefit from that, and they appreciate that.
Let's get the French take on this with Marie. Do you have concerns? I mean, are you here sort of temporarily studying? Is this a short-term arrangement for you?
Yes, but next year I want to do my master in the UK as well, so I will be impacted by the Brexit. And I'm as well very disappointed and very worried because I don't find that it's very clear what's going to happen, and it's a lot of uncertainty. And I feel it's a shame because here I have met so much people from all around Europe. I have met some Spanish, Norwegians, and Germans, and all nationalities. And for me now, European Union is not only an institution; it's more like human. And I feel it's a shame because we learn so much by exchanges with people from different parts of the world with different perspectives.
But people will say we can still do that. I mean, it's not like we're going to cut some big rope and float off into the middle of the Atlantic. We'll still be exactly the same distance away. People will still be welcome to come here, maybe under slightly different agreements, slightly different circumstances. But our strong links to Europe are not going to be broken. It's just that a lot of people in the UK quite clearly felt that this was not a good deal for us.
Yes, but they are not going to come anymore because, for example, for studies, there will be less scholarships, or it's going to be much more expensive, or they will not know if their degrees are equivalent in their own country. And
I'm picking up a deal of sadness from you this morning.
yes, I'm very disappointed because I love England and I feel it's a shame that they leave because, and moreover, it's their main French partner for business, and I study international business, so obviously for me it's very important. And for example, when it was the Brexit, I was in the UK at that time, and when I was doing a placement, and one of the company told, if the Brexit is going to happen, I'm not going anymore to supply with Britain. And so I feel it's crazy because everything is going to change, and I don't see very much positive impact of Brexit could have on France, on me, and for Britain as well.
Thank you all very much indeed for your thoughts this morning, Lucy, Charlotte and Marie. We shall maybe chat to you again a little bit later on, but thank you for sharing your perspectives on this morning. If you've got some response to what our guests are, North Yorkshire based, but originally from EU countries, views are this morning, just thoughts and their stories this morning. So we've heard from representatives of some countries this morning. Let us hear from Germany, Italy and Ireland. In fact, one of our guests can actually speak from two different perspectives this morning, because I think I'm right in saying they have dual nationality. However, let's start with Antje this morning, who is from Germany. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, what's your story? How come a woman from Germany lives and works in York and North Yorkshire?
Well, you fall in love with a British person and you marry him, and you stay married to him for a long time.
This is the story that we've heard from a number of people this morning, that it was love, not necessarily lasting love in some cases, that brought them originally to North Yorkshire. Some people have gone their separate ways. So it's a personal relationship that starts your love affair with this county.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And what do you do with your life?
Right, I have actually two jobs. One is teaching children German, and the other job is...
above, so there's an irony. Here we are, we're about to leave the EU, and here we've got an EU citizen who's now showcasing our city to other people from around the world, particularly fascinating people from around the world, particularly German groups, presumably.
Yes, mostly German groups, yes. And actually there is already a concern. There were school groups just visiting in March, and they expressed doubts whether they can come. And their head teachers were on their back, and well, will that continue if you have to apply, for example, for a visa to come here?
That's fascinating. It's also worrying. Were you able to offer any reassurance? Do you actually know? Do you feel anybody knows yet what the truth of the situation will be in circumstances like that? We love welcoming tourists. Good heavens, umpteen jobs, tens of thousands of jobs in York and North Yorkshire depends on our tourism industry.
Well, I could tell them nothing, really, because we don't even know whether we can stay here either. And it's sort of really a shame, because one thing of the EU is that I can be here with so many different people talking English, and, not that long ago, we were on different sides, thinking back to the Second World War, and my grandparents for the grandparents of people here. And now we can be here, and that was one of the wonderful principles of the EU, this is the founding idea of the EU, to create a peaceful relationship amongst the European countries.
But to many people, what's happened is it's gone beyond that. So that's the way we started out. We started out with a common market, and in fact there were agreements that took place before that, after the Second World War, about peace, about harmony, to try and make sure that Europe didn't go to war again and tear itself apart and see millions killed. And the answer from many people is all that can continue. It's just that quite a lot of people in the UK, 52% of them, now believe that we're better off out of the EU, not having to be dictated to by EU rules and regulations, not having to pay billions of pounds a year into the common EU pot.
Well, the problem is, if you're not in the club, you can't determine what's happening. So if you're now out of it, you don't have any input, but you still need to apply to the regulations if you want to export there. So this argument doesn't wash with me at all, actually.
I'll come back to you in a moment or two's time. Let's say good morning to Frederica.
Good morning.
Now, what country do you represent, Frederica? Which hat have you got on today?
Well, I've got the Italian hat on, but I suppose I represent Italy, Germany and Luxembourg because that's where I grew up, so...
You're marvellous. You're like a sort of rainbow of a person. Well, right, you are Italy today.
Yes.
How come you're here? Don't tell me, love.
Well, university initially. So because I grew up in Luxembourg, there was no university in the tiny little country of Luxembourg at the time. I'd gone to the European school, so I'd done lots and lots of subjects in English. And I've seen Europe, and I picked the UK. I love the UK, and I wanted to come to the UK. I loved the university system. And then, yes, while I was at university, love happened. And so, yes, I came to Yorkshire. I went to uni in Bradford, and I've stayed in Yorkshire. And the reason I'm here today is because I do a lot of work in North Yorkshire with schools as well. So I've got a British husband, I've got tri-nationality daughters, and yes, to me it's just whilst I can understand a lot of reasons why a lot of people voted to leave, because of the concerns that they had, a lot of them unfounded, a lot of them based, unfortunately, on lies. But I can understand the sort of bubbling resentment that has built up there. But actually, the reality is, when we're now looking at the negotiations that are happening, that whatever people have been promised is not what's going to happen. And you talked about sovereignty there, and you know, I say we because I've been here for 27 years. The UK never lost sovereignty. It will lose sovereignty if Brexit goes ahead, and I am saying if, because I'm still campaigning very hard to stop that from happening.
Really? Because as far as most people are concerned, you know, and I've been very careful today on air to say when, not if, because that's the majority will, the democratic will of 52% of the British population.
It's the will of 52% of the people who voted at the time, 2 years ago nearly, and that's actually about 24% of the population, about 37% of those eligible to vote, and actually people are allowed to change their minds as well, you know.
Nobody wants to change their mind, not that they've told us this morning. What are your fears? What are your practical concerns? I mean, a lot of people regard this as a little bit of, you know, theoretical this and that and billions of pounds and EU regulations that don't really seem to touch most people's lives on a moment-to-moment, year-by-year basis. What are your actual practical touch most people's lives on a moment-to-moment, year-by-year basis? What are your actual practical concerns about what Brexit might mean?
Too many to mention in the short time, so let's talk about people's lives. We're all in limbo, and you know, we as EU citizens in the UK are in limbo, as are all our family members, because if something happens to one of us, that affects the entire family and extended family. Lots of Brits living in the other EU countries are in limbo at the moment, and the country is in limbo in terms of what's going to happen.
But I mean, what for you though? What for your family? What could this mean? Will there be circumstances where Brexit will make things difficult?
Okay, so I will have to apply at the moment, as things stand, for settled status. Settled status is actually a loss of rights as it stands, and I will have to physically apply. It's not a registration, it's an application. And the Home Office at the moment, when it comes to getting confirmation of our right to actually be here, have about a 10% rate, and have, you know, they've been appalling in terms of sending 100 letters out to people telling them that they were going to get kicked out. So the error rate is appalling. When you've got millions of people applying in a short space of time, the error rate is likely to go up. The government are trying to put through laws that are going to stop us from accessing our data. So if there is an error, we won't even be able to access that data to look at what's gone wrong. So where is the recourse? Where is the protection? We will then be left in this hole. So I personally could be left in this hole, even if I am eligible to stay, just because of an error in which I can't access the data. I have no right of appeal in any kind of realistic way. And I am then subject to the Home Office's hostile environment, which means they can freeze my bank account, they can take my driving license away, they can basically make my life here impossible.
Having met you this morning, just briefly, I wouldn't dare do any of those things to you. I simply wouldn't dare. We're going to guest in this small group, the only man who's with us today, in just a moment or two's time. First, I'll tell you about North Yorkshire's weather. For today, after a cold and frosty start, a rather beautiful one with lots of sunshine, cloud will slowly build, bringing an increasing chance of showers, especially this afternoon. Some will be heavy and there will be some hail and thunder. Longer spells of rain by evening, a maximum temperature today between 6 and 9 Celsius, that's 43 to 48 Fahrenheit. Tonight, cloud with further rain, perhaps a little sleet or snow over high ground. Should become drier later in the night, not as cold as last night. Minimum temperature tonight between 1 and 4, that's 34 to 39 Fahrenheit. And for tomorrow, Good Friday, largely dry with 1 or 2 brighter spells, but in general, a lot of cloud, the increasing chance of a few spots of rain later in the day. Breezy too, and cool for late March, maximum temperature 4 to 7 Celsius. And the outlook, a mainly cloudy, damp and rather chilly Saturday, turning somewhat drier and colder overnight with clear spells, although 1 or 2 wintry showers are possible. On Sunday, Easter Day itself, we'll have sunshine at times, but with the chance of the odd sleety shower. Cold on Sunday night, before rain and perhaps some snow spreading from the south on Easter Monday.
Weekdays from 12 on BBC Radio York.
Adam and Anna take you back in time.
The 60s.
The 70s.
The 80s.
The 90s.
The stories you remember, the music you love.
But what was the year? Travel back in time with Adam Tomlinson and Anna Wallace.
Weekdays from 12. BBC Radio York.
BBC Radio York with the time coming up to 22 minutes to 11 with our special Brexit programme. Just having a chat this morning with some folks who are originally from other countries, the countries that will be remaining in the EU when Britain leaves. Let us talk now to Eamon. Eamon, the single solitary chap amongst our...
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Now, just say a little for me.
Where I'm from.
Well, I think the fact that you've just said where I'm from was just giving it away. So you're here to represent Ireland.
Of course, yeah.
Why do you live in North Yorkshire?
I live in North Yorkshire. I came to England in the mid-80s. The Irish economy wasn't doing too well. Finished my masters in Dublin. That was accredited to British professional institutions. Gave me easy access to work in the UK at the time. Stayed around the southeast in London, met a Yorkshire woman.
It's another tale of love.
Yeah, got married, we moved, and we wanted to move to Yorkshire. We didn't want to stay in London with children, so we moved up to York.
And how long have you been here now?
Been here in York now for 21 years.
Right, so you're just part of the fabric of the city?
Part of the fabric of the city. Been here in York now for 21 years.
Right, so you're just part of the fabric of the city?
Part of the fabric of the city, yeah. I'm a planning consultant in the city. I'm involved with business community in the city. And what you find when you live in York and you go around the rest of England, the UK, and you think, why are these places not as good as York? And you think, oh, well, it's because York is a really good place to live.
And because we've got some great designers who live here. So that would help. That would help.
Indeed.
What are your feelings? Because there is a particular issue with your home country, because we're talking about a border issue, which I'm sure you've followed quite closely, which again seems to be one of these particularly thorny sticking points for these EU negotiations. What will actually happen between the North and the South?
Yeah, well, it is complicated. The relationship between England and Ireland has always been is interesting because it goes back a long, long way.
Man with a gift for understatement.
Yeah, yes. And we should, also, what's interesting. What's interesting. Many people not be aware, but the Ireland and the UK are the only two countries in the EU where citizens have reciprocal voting rights in parliamentary elections. Ireland and the UK joined the EU on the same day in 1973. So a lot of the relationships that had endured for decades previously simply came along with membership of both countries when they joined the EU. The fact that for the first time the EU and Ireland and England are going to be in a very different relationship does pose questions that have never had to be asked before, because the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland has always been permeable. It's one of the most permeable borders in Europe. And it's, of course, it is the UK's only land border now, and will be the only UK's land border with an EU country.
And can we make it work in a way that isn't sort of so wrapped up in red tape or extraordinary technology?
Well, I was listening to some of your colleagues on Northern Ireland, and they were just amazed at how they could just cross and recross multiple times in a matter of an hour between the two, and how do you police that? I don't think anyone has an answer at the moment.
What's going on in your heart? How do you feel about this? Because are you going to remain feeling like you are, as an Irishman living in York, as York, along with the rest of the UK, Brexit, you're going to carry on feeling like a European citizen? What does the future hold for you? Because let's be honest, an awful lot of people are trying to work out whether they can claim Irish citizenship so they can stay in the EU.
Yeah. Well, I think the relationship for Irish people is slightly different because of the historic legal links between the two countries. How do I feel about it? Baffled, sad, annoyed. Angry, but not in the kind of an aggressive way, but angry because I think it's just.
Why?
Because I think, as has been said earlier, it's interesting the way Theresa May is now selling this, is that when the government's not going to do anything that's going to harm the economy or to harm jobs. Well, if that's the case, and if our largest single trading bloc is the EU, then we're going to have to maintain all those relationships with the EU, but with all of the disadvantages of not being a member of the EU. In other words, not having a say over how the EU governs itself, but we're still going to have to subscribe or want to subscribe to many of the rules and regulations governing quite critical things, for example, like medicines, quite really important areas of life for a lot of people.
Well, the Medicines Agency took itself out of London with 600 jobs going, I think.
Well, precisely, and the pharmaceutical industry is one of the biggest industries in the UK, one of the biggest exporters from the UK. So these questions, when people say to me they knew what they were voting for when they voted to leave, I really don't think that they had the full picture.
Eamon, thank you very much indeed. 3 more views this morning from people from other EU countries who these days live in York and North Yorkshire. You just heard take itself out of the EU. Let us hear from a Lithuanian. I didn't know we had Lithuanians living in North Yorkshire. Yava, good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
Have I got the pronunciation correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
How come a Lithuanian? I mean, if you were to walk the streets of York and say, how many Lithuanians do you think live in North Yorkshire? People go, I don't think there are any, but here you are.
There are a few. I think my estimation about 100. So you may find a neighbor from Lithuania as well. So never know.
And what brought you here?
I came to study at the University of York. So I did my bachelor's here, and actually just a few months ago I graduated the master's at the University of York as well.
Congratulations. What's your subject?
Well, bachelor's was politics for international relations, and master's project analysis, finance, investment.
Oh crikey! Oh dear, we're talking to a woman with a brain the size of a planet here this morning. But to a woman with a brain the size of a planet here this morning. But your first degree was in what?
Politics with international relations. So that's very relevant.
Isn't it just? So you came here to study, and you've obviously stayed. Do you like York and North Yorkshire?
Yes, I love it. York is my home. People are really nice, and I had an opportunity to work while studying, and I've been working. I actually got a small business here as well at Chippy. I don't know if you can get any more traditional than that.
Sorry, hang on a minute. You've got a master's degree, a business degree, and all sorts of things, and you run a Chippy?
Yes, the Sea Catcher on Clarence Street, just down the road.
The one I cycle past every morning?
I know, yes.
I'll be stopping in for some scraps. How come a woman with all your qualifications decides to run a chippy?
Well, it started off as a part-time job in one of the chippies while studying, and that's where I learned the trade. I met in one of the chippies while studying, and that's where I learned the trade. I met awesome people who, you know, are passionate about cooking good fish and chips and business-like, and together with the team, I've set up the Sea Catcher.
You couldn't be doing anything more quintessentially British as a Lithuanian in Yorkshire than running a fish and chip shop. What are your feelings about the UK's decision to leave the EU? You were here at the time, obviously. Did you have a vote? Did you have a say in it?
No, I didn't. I've been living here for 7 years, but no, I'm a Lithuanian citizen, so I didn't have the say. But to be fair, I take it as given, if you know what I mean. The Brexit, it's been decided, you know, and even though there's been only a few percentage difference, I take it that we have to now get on with it and make the most out of it.
That's the most laid back, huge Germany and Luxembourg, if you want to take all her different national tags into. She's absolutely incandescent about it. Our German guest this morning thinks that the UK's made a huge mistake and she's really cross. And you seem very, very cool about it.
Well, you know, like I said, the decision is made, and at this moment of time, I believe we just have to make sure that Britain gets the best deal, and we as EU nationals, we have to make sure that we have our rights preserved and we are able to live here and have a prosperous life, which I have got no doubts about.
Do you not think it's going to make any difference to you? Are you not concerned about your future?
No, not really. I believe, first of all, in myself, I've got skills and abilities to create life anywhere, but I choose Britain, I choose Yorkshire, and I don't believe it's going to change. I believe that Britain is still going to be open for business. Yes, there's going to be a cost. That is undoubtedly the case, you know, but I believe we are going to be fine. We're going to work it out.
The voice of Lithuania in North Yorkshire this morning. What about the Netherlands? Good morning, Naomi.
Good morning.
What's your story? How come a woman from the Netherlands lives in York and North Yorkshire?
I came to the UK, to actually the West Midlands, about 11 years ago. And how I ended up in York is because I fled the expenses in London, where I've been living for the past 8 years, and we just needed we were looking for a better lifestyle. So.
And did you find it?
Yeah, I've only been here for like half a year, but yeah, I'm very happy with our decision. Yeah.
You smile a lot as you say that. Did you smile a lot when you heard the outcome of the Brexit vote?
Well, when I first heard it, no, I was very, very upset.
Why?
Because there was quite a few people that I knew that had also voted Brexit, and they said, well, it's not, we didn't, you're different. Well, it's not, we didn't, you're different. We voted for other reasons than other people, but I said it's also, has an effect on me. So it was kind of like, maybe I took it a little bit personal. But, it's 2 years later now, I think, since they voted, and I kind of like calmed down, and, I had a lot of thoughts about it. And,
so you're a bit more relaxed about it now. Yeah. Do you actually have concerns, though?
Well, for myself personally, not so much, because I've been here 10 years. I'm assuming I'm staying. If I can't stay, I'll leave. I'll find another place to live. My partner is English, but he's applied for an Irish passport, which has been granted. So we are free to go wherever we want to go. So for us, it hasn't got, it's fine. But I'm more concerned for like the future generation of kids in the UK.
Fascinating. Thank you so much indeed for giving us an insight. Let's be in a certain well-known shop. Yes. Therese, good morning.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Whereabouts are you from?
Malta, of course, yes.
Well, you say Malta, of course. How long have you lived in York and North Yorkshire?
I've been here almost now 49 years, and happy to say it's lovely living here in England.
So you're well embedded?
Yeah, well embedded, yes.
And as someone who's lived here that length of time, you would have had a vote. May I ask you how you voted in when it came to Brexit?
I'm not really going to say that.
You're not going to say?
No.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's absolutely fine. You've got a right to decline that.
It's very disappointing, whatever. I hope the country will be going forward, not backwards.
Sorry, what do you think is disappointing?
because we weren't given the right information and whatever we were going to go through, it's just, so I'm hoping that things will look up, better for this country. And yeah.
Do you feel positive? How does? I mean, do you know? Have you got family back in Malta that you stay in touch with?
Oh yes, I've got 5 brothers and a sister, and I've got a sister that lives in England as well. She's been here a while. So.
And what did they say about our decision to leave, our vote to leave?
Some said it's best. Some said it's not. Shouldn't have left. So, and then when we were there, when the votes was going through, and I was going into shops and everything. Maltese were saying, the best thing you've ever done, left Europe. And I'm thinking, yes, the best thing you've ever done. And I'm thinking, are you sure? Yeah, yes, the best thing. So you don't know.
It's that. Well, you say you don't know. It's that sense of uncertainty. Does that? Do you think that's going to have an impact on your life at all? You've been here for nearly half a century now.
No, it won't. No.
I'm just, with all due respect.
I came here. I married Chris, as if though I came here to work. Like, we had a lot of Maltese people that were recruited from Malta to come and work in the industries here. So, came, because I married Chris, and that was it. So, yeah. Okay, I like it here, especially York.
Especially York. You've spent a long time here. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us this morning. We might just have time to get a final group thought from our guest this morning before we are done. But thank you very much indeed to our final 3 guests joining us from Lithuania, from the Netherlands, and from Malta with their thoughts on, what Brexit from the EU is going to mean for the UK. If you've got some response to some of the strong views that you're hearing this morning, you heard our guest from Lithuania saying, bring it on, we're going to be absolutely great, UK is going to be fine, thank you very much indeed. She's got clearly a business head on her shoulders, having studied for master's degrees in this, that and the other, and now running a chip shop. Some are concerned. The latest news coming up here on BBC Radio York in a moment or two's time with Nathan Turley. I did joke, cruelly I'm afraid, with my guest this morning that we hope they'd all brought their national food with them this morning. Only one can proudly put a hand up and say this is true, and it's Anya from Germany. What have we got?
Right, it's an Easter lamb. It's basically a sponge, and you eat it with jam, and I brought my homemade jam as well.
What kind of jam is it?
Anything that grows in my garden. So it's blackberries and red currants, and there might still be some raspberries in there as well.
Oh, very nice. It was a very, very friendly offering. Have people tried it? Have you had a go with it? Yes. Smiles all around. Well, there we are. Food certainly brings people together. Frederica, I think you've been perhaps one of the most outspoken people this morning, and you happen to be sitting next to Java, who's our guest from Lithuania. You two seem to have very different views, because you say, yeah, come on, bring it on. Britain can make a go of this. You, Frederica, say, this is a disaster. I'm really worried. What do you say to one another, just very briefly?
Well, for Frederica, I really do believe that it's gonna come out okay, and it will be a cost. We know that, but we as residents who already been living here, I don't believe that we're gonna be that affected that much,
Frederica, convinced?
I'm afraid not. No, I mean, for a start, why should there be a cost? We don't have to do this. And as for what will happen to us as EU citizens, I think we are already affected emotionally. We're affected from the stress. And actually, there's a book in Limbo, if you haven't read it, that has testimonies from EU citizens and from UK citizens in the EU that bears witness to just how painful this has been for a lot of us.
Okay, to Antje from Germany with a hand up.
Right, I have got a big problem because we weren't allowed a vote, and I'm about to hear. We have got a German councillor on the council. He will not be able to stand. In the Labour Party, there is someone who wants to be a councillor, and she can't stand either.
So you feel that it's actually steering it away from party politics, but you feel that it's affecting your democracy. And I can tell you're moved by this.
Yes, this is really, really, when people say it's about democracy. We were excluded from this democracy, and it's really deep feeling about it.
Give me a hug. I'm very, very sorry that this situation has left one of our guests in tears this morning. Not the only one who feels strongly about this. I can see that Charlotte from Denmark is also wiping a tear from her eye. It has around some strong passions. You have been a great group of people this morning. Thank you so much. Here we are. We've got tissues. Tissues are being passed from the Czech Republic to Germany this morning. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us and for sharing your thoughts and opinions live on BBC Radio York in our Brexit special.